My name is John Lobell. I teach architecture at Pratt Institute. This is a lecture on Buddhist architecture given for my non-Western course in fall 2014. So I'm going to build up some thoughts about Buddhism, and then we'll see why, its relationship to Hinduism. So from Wikipedia, the key thing about Buddhism is it's not clear that it's a religion, and there's no God. Buddha's not a God. Buddha's a human being who figured it out. And any one of us has the potential to figure it out. So it's a practical philosophy. It's certainly a psychology. It's really strong on mind. So there's a historical figure, and he has a story, which is, apocryphal. Can someone demonstrate it really happened that way? But he's born a prince in a small kingdom, and his father receives a prophecy he'll become a great ruler either in this world or the next one. Well, his father doesn't want him to become a religious figure and leave the father stuck running the kingdom, because the son's supposed to take over when you're 40. So he shields him from the outside world, but the gods conspire to reveal the world to him, and he sees that there's suffering in the world, and he says, I got to fix this. So that's the beginnings of Buddhism. So our key building type is a stupa, which is a reliquary. Can anybody tell me what a relic is? Correct, a little bit gross. It's a piece of a dead saint. So when a saint dies, may or may not be a cremation, cut up in little pieces, and then you've got in a glass vial, this finger in a church, and if you bring your sick child there, it'll have healing powers, hopefully. There's no interior, you circumambulate it. You go around it. So it's a model of Mount Muru, which is a sacred mountain in Hinduism, Buddhism. It's a world axis, which we saw in shamanism. We saw the world mountain in shamanism. It's a macrocosm of the human body. So each, as we go up, these are parts of the psychological self and levels of consciousness. And anything you don't get down, the slides are all online. So our key stupa is Sanchi, Great Stupa at Sanchi, by Emperor Ashoka. Ashoka's grandfather is the one who encountered Alexander the Great in battle. And then Ashoka was a fierce warrior, slaughtered tens of thousands of people in battle, and then felt bad about it and became a Buddhist, and built thousands of monasteries, learning centers, and stupas across India, most of which are gone, but the one at Sanchi is still there. And this is the gate that welcomes us in. Again, we get these erotic figures. Now, Buddhism originates in India, then spreads across Asia. Goes to Japan, goes down into Indonesia. Around 1000 AD, we get the Muslim invasions of India, and that ends Buddhism in India. So there's no Buddhism in India today, except in two forms. Number one, there are Tibetan Buddhist refugees in India, and the Dalai Lama, his headquarters is in Dharamsala in India. And number two, a lot of Hinduism is not one thing. Hinduism is basically Indian culture. And so whatever we might call Hinduism absorbs a lot of Buddhism. So Hinduism today would have absorbed a lot of Buddhism. In its spreading, it takes on many forms, as does the stupa. Here we are in Thailand, and this is a gold leaf. So when you visit in Thailand, you make a donation, which will buy a piece of gold leaf, and the monks will rub it on to keeping up the gold surfaces. This gold leaf, the gold can be hammered extremely thin, so it's not a lot of gold to make a sheet of gold leaf. Here we are in Mongolia, stupas with eyes painted on them. So here's a little chart of these stupa types. And the stupas represent the psychology, so these chakras, and the world of desire, the world of form, the formless world, and the void. So there are four basic layers to a stupa. They also correspond to earth, air, fire, water, colors, etc. It's a model of Mount Meru, and Mount Ararat, Mount Olympus, all of these Indo-European religions have mountains. Most important stupa is Borobudur in Indonesia. On the island of Java. So it's huge, not that high, very big around. And it's a step pyramid, symbolic of layers of heavens, layers of levels of consciousness. And again, you circumambulate it. So you come up the stairs, go all the way around, up again, all the way around, etc. The walls are covered with carvings of the stories of the life of the Buddha and what's called the Jataka tales, which is stories of the life of the Buddha before he became, in previous incarnations before he becomes the Buddha, during which he acquired the merit for his achievement. It's located in a volcanic plain, and here we go, surrounded by mountains, many of which are like mildly active volcanoes. And so it's subject to earthquakes, which damage it, and it's built out of the lava rock, which is really bad stuff. It's like a sponge, and so it accumulates dirt. You don't have beautiful marble or polished granite. It's very coarse stone. It was in bad shape some years ago, and as many of the monuments we'll see in this course, it's a UNESCO World Cultural Site, which means the UN puts up money for its restoration, which then helps the locals because it brings in tourists. Now, there's somewhat of a hill here, and then it sort of continues the hill, so it's a little world mountain, and it's surrounded by these mountains. Oops, let's go this way. So here we come up, go around, come up, go around, etc. It's a beautiful work of art. It would just be nice if it was in a stone of higher quality. Now, somebody was sloppy, because this is from a beautiful book called Atlas of World Architecture, wonderful drawings, except this thing is not round. It's a little bit flattened on each side. It's roundish, but a little bit flattened on each side. So somebody was sloppy in not actually measuring that in making this drawing. So each of these layers represent the realm of desire is actually underground, the world of form, the formless realm, and then the void. And again, you can see it's a mandala. And you're circumambulating around this. Well, first of all, coming here is a pilgrimage. In other words, you might, if you're a Buddhist, you might go to various important Buddhist locations. Each one may be helping complete some part of your sense of your journey. When you get here, you're going to do this circumambulation. Now, we have the exact same tradition in Christianity. Each of the Gothic cathedrals is and many other Christian sites, are a pilgrimage destination that you might go to because your child is sick and you go to Lourdes for the healing water, or to work on completing your soul. And then in Chartres, the labyrinth is still there. When you get there, you walk this labyrinth, very much like circumambulating here. Most of the Gothic cathedrals had labyrinths. Most of them were removed during the French Revolution, but Chartres is still there. So another parallel with Catholicism. So here again, the world of desire, form, formless, and then void. Desire, form, formless, and then void. And as you go around, here are bas-reliefs that are telling you the stories of the life of the Buddha. Here's the Buddha's mother going to a special place to give birth to the Buddha, and to communicate these stories to an illiterate people, just the way the stained glass windows in a Gothic cathedral communicate the stories of the Bible to an illiterate people. On top are these sort of little stupas, and under each one is a sculpture of a Buddha. Here's a Japanese Buddhist monk who is here on a pilgrimage. And here we can see how clearly it is, this is a mandala, and Borobudur is a mandala. And then here, it's questionable what's supposed to go inside this top little temple thing. It again has a corbel interior. There is now a sculpture in there. One of the sculptures from out here, because during the restoration was found empty. And that's controversial, because as representative of the void, should there be nothing there? Or should there be a sculpture? So you can have a theological discussion about that. And as the sun sets in the west, now, let's do two things. First of all, let's look at the strong similarities between Borobudur and our Mayan pyramid. Step pyramidal form, temple on top, step pyramidal form, temple on top, stairs on four sides. Here are the plans. Stairs much narrower here, but conceptually it's the exact same thing. Steps having all kinds of specific meanings, but also representing the tiers of heavens, halfway across the world from each other. The railing at the bottom of the stairs is a snake's head in each case. Mexico, Borobudur. And the railing of the stair itself, I don't have the right picture here, but you get a diamondback snake shadow cast on here at the equinoxes. The handrail on these stairs is a snake's body, as well as the heads at the bottoms. Here we are, a Mayan maze god. His hand down, fingers up. Here is a Buddha in boon-bestowing gesture. Almost identical. Okay, so now a little bit of background on Buddhism. It spreads across the Indian subcontinent in the 5 centuries following Buddha's death. And today there are 3 primary traditions, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And we'll say what those are in a moment. Buddha becomes enlightened under a Bodhi tree, begins in India, spreads throughout India, and then China up into Mongolia to Japan. So there are 2 types of religion. Now we're going to go back and relate Buddhism to Hinduism. There are ethnic religions and world religions. So an ethnic religion is for a particular group. Judaism is for Jews, Hinduism is for Indians, Shintoism is for Japanese. You don't say, you know, Shinto is interesting, I think I'll convert to Shintoism. You were born Shinto by being born Japanese. Maybe somebody will convert. And sometimes you convert, say, to Judaism if you get married, you would convert. You might convert. But in general, you don't convert to these. You were born into an ethnic religion. A world religion is for everyone. It originates in one place, but it's now widely spread. So Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam are world religions. Now, we know a lot about the influence of the West on the East. European powers have conquered China, India, Japan, and brought Western values. But there's been a continual flow of Eastern ideas into the West. So 326 BC, Alexander the Great goes into India and encounters sort of pre-Buddhist ideas. They are brought back to Greece and become fundamental to Neoplatonism, which is fundamental to Christianity. So there's a scene in one of the Buddhist stories where Buddha is speaking to his disciples, and one of the disciples says, you speak about this world as being a great jewel. Looks like shit to me. What are you talking about here? And the Buddha says, the problem is with your perception. And then he stomps down his stick and all the disciples can see the world from his point of view. There's a scene in which the disciples say to Jesus Christ, when will the kingdom come? You keep talking about this. When's it going to happen? And Christ said, now this is in the Thomas Gospel. One gets left out of the Bible. But Christ says, the kingdom will not come by expectation, but is spread upon the earth now, and men do not see it. It's the exact same quote. The British enter India in the 1700s and discover Sanskrit texts. Nobody can translate Sanskrit into Latin, but they can get Sanskrit into Persian, and they can get Persian into Latin. And suddenly Immanuel Kant, and later Schopenhauer, and then the American Transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, are reading this stuff. And it becomes fundamental to Immanuel Kant's the thing in itself. What is the thing in itself? Self, independent of our perception of it. That's that transcendent oneness. In 1893, Swami Vivekananda, the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, comes to the Chicago World's Fair. And this really spreads these ideas here. 1950s, returning American troops from occupying Japan bring Zen Buddhism back. Influences the Beat Generation, Jack Kerouac's The Dharma Bums, and Norman Mailer's Advertisements Myself are very influenced by Zen Buddhism. 1959, China invades Tibet and begins its destruction. Many Tibetan Buddhist leaders flee. In 1970, Chingam Trungpa Rinpoche, my teacher, is the first Tibetan teacher to come to the United States. And so it's just recently, and then psychology departments in quite a few universities are very influenced by this Buddhist thought. So there's a real, at Columbia University, Robert Thurman, otherwise famous for being Uma Thurman's father, is chair of Indo-Tibetan Studies at Columbia. He is the first ordained Buddhist monk in America to become an ordained Buddhist monk, and then left the monkhood so that he could be in a secular world and teach at Columbia. So these ideas start spreading into contemporary American culture. Very strong parallels with postmodernism, Buddhist thought and postmodern thought. Fundamental ideas of Buddhism. We start with the story of the Buddha, which sort of embeds key ideas of Buddhism. His realization that there's suffering in the world and he's going to fix it. You have the Four Noble Truths. All life is suffering. There's a cause for the suffering. There's a way out of the suffering. The Buddhist teaching is the way out of the suffering. So that's the Four Noble Truths. Fundamental to all this is reincarnation. So one can find Buddhism interesting, but it's very problematic if you don't accept reincarnation, because that's the whole point. In other words, if life is suffering, death is the solution. But if you believe in reincarnation, oh shit, now I'm back, I have to do it all over again. And it never ends. So that's the big problem in the East. Not that life is difficult, but that you never get over it. So not only do you have to make this life tolerable, not only do you have to make this life tolerable, you have to solve this problem of continual reincarnation. And that's done through the achievement of nirvana, which has a lot of different definitions. One definition of nirvana is it's death without rebirth. Now, that doesn't have to be nihilistic. It can be this drop of, your individual life is like a drop of dew that is condensed out of the great oneness. What am I doing out here? And death is the drop of dew running back into the great oneness of the great ocean of oneness. So that's a good thing. So that's a positive interpretation of nirvana. But there's a lot of interpretations of it. So there are three major schools of Buddhism. Hinayana, which is not, the Hinayana Buddhists don't like the term because it's called lesser vehicle. And so it's called Theravada. And that is the Buddhism of monks. So you see pictures in Ceylon or Thailand of these monks. That's the Hinayana tradition. You become a monk, you work your entire monkhood at working toward cleaning up your mind so that you can hopefully, maybe in 1,000 incarnations, eventually achieve nirvana. But everybody else is stuck. Only the monks get this. So if you're a layperson, you donate to the monastery and say, yeah, in this lifetime I'm going to get rich, but maybe in some future lifetime I will be able to become a monk and make progress. Mahayana Buddhism, great vehicle, is the notion that you don't have to be a monk. Everything you do can be a Buddhist practice. So washing the dishes can be meditation, if you do it right. And some years ago, a former assistant to our dean was in a particular Christian sect, Catholic order. And he was a monk. And I said, he says, yeah, this is an order in which you participate in the world. And that is your monthly duties. In your relationship with everything you do, every relationship, every encounter is a part of their monthly process. Well, exact same idea in Mahayana, that your engagement in everyday life can be working toward your enlightenment. Had the idea of the bodhisattva, which is the bodhisattva takes a vow that they will not achieve nirvana until everybody else does. They'll stay here and help everybody else. And finally, there's Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism. It's the same as Mahayana, except you use high-powered techniques to get there in one lifetime. And these are very dangerous techniques. So you need proper training to use them. This is a Tibetan wheel of life, and it's used for instruction. And at the core is a pig, a snake, and a rooster. That's passion, aggression, and ignorance. So these are the core elements of the operating system of your mind, which is not good. And it's pretty hard to reprogram, the core kernel of Windows while you're using Windows. This is not superficial. This is at the very core. We're driven by passion, and we're driven by aggression, and we're driven by ignorance. So the key to Vajrayana Buddhist studies is to reprogram this on the fly while we're engaged in life. And then these are all the different psychological realms that we get trapped in our petty everyday lives. So, that in a nutshell is Buddhism. Now here's a thought. These are two of my favorite sculptures. This is Michelangelo's David. And this is Padma-Paramita, goddess of transcendent wisdom. It's a Buddhist sculpture from East Java. So let's contrast these. Male, female. In intense psychological contemplation, about to engage in an act of war. In calm meditation. Eyes open and intensely focused, eyes closed. So these are two very different notions of what human being can be, and what might you suspect I might suggest? Maybe we can integrate both of these into ourselves. In some balance, it makes sense to you. So look at the furrowed brow, the intent. There's an inner psychological self here. There's a mind going on in here. There's a transcendence of that mind. There's a other realmness.